Twitch's boss, CEO of Twitch, co-founder, Emmett Shear, thinks that Sony and Microsoft have to evolve their hardware quicker. And here's what he says, quote, "The problem is the 7-year upgrade life cycle doesn't work in the face of the 2-year upgrade cycles for every other hardware platform." This is in an interview with The Guardian. He says, "It's so intrinsically built into how consoles get manufactured and made and the full business model that I'd be surprised to see another generation of it being done this way," he means. He's saying that the future needs to be more like set-top boxes and smartphones and tablets where, quote, "they're going to have to change form. You can already see this on both Xbox and PlayStation where there's a tighter upgrade loop for both the operating system and the games. This is the first step toward being able to iterate the hardware platform. I could imagine a version 1.1 product from both Microsoft and Sony, which adds in slightly more speed and slightly more memory, very similar to how phones and tablets work today. I think it's going to look look more like the mobile phone market over time." Do you agree with him?
There's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to go ahead and say, overall, yes. I do think Microsoft and Sony have to figure out a way to get more out of the consoles over time, right?
Yeah.
I read a really interesting something. I can't remember if it was an article or if it was something just someone said, but someone pointed out that when Steve Jobs first stood on the Apple stage and swiped his finger across the screen of the iPhone, and everyone was blown away. That wasn't that long ago.
No.
That was only 7 years ago.
That's
That was
true.
That was 2007.
Well, 8 years ago now.
8 years ago, yes. So that's not actually that long ago, right? And to think that one piece of hardware, and just think about how much the iPhone has changed since then. To think that
Night and
we
day.
can expect a console or any real piece of tech in this digital landscape to live that long without being changed, like in any significant way, both from a hardware perspective and a software perspective, that's kind of outrageous. Like, I think I was of the mindset, and I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but even when the consoles came out and the specs were announced for Xbox One and PS4, I was a little bit wary about what those consoles would be like in terms of their power and capability 3 or 4 years down the line. Never, furthermore, the 10-year lifespan that they promised for PS4 or the 7 to 9 or whatever that they expected for Xbox One. Whether or not that means adjusting to a more mobile-like market, I don't know. That's the part where I'm not exactly sure what he means. You really have to unpack that and kind of get down to brass tacks about the details.
Yeah.
But certainly some upgrades, some way of evolving the consoles over time.
Yeah,
Definitely is something needed.
I think the answer lies somewhere between what he proposes and what we currently have. He's not wrong in the sense of, is this console generation, the last console generation was the longest one ever.
Yes.
So the question, in coming into this one, I don't know if I certainly assumed coming into this, it would be the similar thing. Like, it's going to be an 8-year life cycle. The Sony, Microsoft are going to try and milk every ounce they can out of the box. But it is true that the mobile market, the iPhones, the Androids, keep advancing at such a rapid rate, and they're not going to replace consoles anytime soon. Certainly not while they don't have physical controllers. But it does. I hope it actually does force the gaming consoles to evolve a little quicker. I wonder if we'll see a 4 or 5 year life cycle, and then the next Xbox and the next PlayStation in 3 or 4 years from now end up being not orders of magnitude more powerful, but more of an incremental step in power. And then they'll continue to pull the monetized backwards compatibility garbage on us and continue to evolve the games into services and subscriptions so that, yes,
so
we're
it's
going to
more Steam-like, actually.
Right. Yes, we're going to have a new, the Xbox 1.5 in 2018,
or something like that.
Holiday 2018. But it's okay. All your old games are going to work provided you maintain an Xbox Live Gold account with us.
So,
you know what I mean? Something like that.
Yeah.
And then they can try and sort of stay ahead of the curve a little bit better than...
I think that would allow them to. Again, you'd have to kind of work out how that works best. You'd have to figure out a strategy that also benefits gamers, because I'm not exactly sold on the whole idea of... monetizing backwards compatibility and making
You don't
that
have
like
a
your focal
choice
point
at this point.
No, but making that your focal point of the business and then
Right.
doing iterative upgrades, like that's not exactly what I would want from a console. Because the other thing you got to look at is where these consoles actually fit in the market of gaming. Like the consoles, like we harped on the Xbox a little bit for being expensive at its launch, and it's now seen a price cut. But if you were to compare it to the MSRP of just a regular iPhone without a subscription, like or a 2-year plan, that's like a $600 or in some cases $700 piece
That's
of tech.
true. Yes.
So you can't really take a look at the mobile market, at least in my mind. You can't really look at the mobile market and say like, well, this is what consoles need to do, because they're not the same type of device. Like the console market does appeal to a different consumer base, one that's more games oriented, and I would argue less tech oriented, although in every comment section it's 1080p, 60 FPS, 4K. Like, why
Right.
can't these consoles do that? Well, they're not the same devices. But I do like, if you what you can learn from the mobile market is how they've made iteration and sort of new implementations of technology and services part of something that the consumer base expects. Like, we don't get a new iPhone every year because we need it or because it's doing something significantly different than the last one. They've conditioned people to want it.
That's right.
And I think that is the key to kind of keeping consoles relevant in gaming. And that's not to say that they're not relevant. Like, that was one of the big problems I had with this quote was like, he said something about how it's so intrinsically built into how the consoles get manufactured and made that the full business model that I'd be surprised to see another generation built like that. I mean, the numbers speak in favor of the consoles here. They're selling faster than they ever have before.
right.
So I don't think that it's going away or that it's in any danger, but I do think it needs to evolve a little bit for sure.
Yeah. Well, time will tell. Mark this episode down. Episode 188. Come back in 4 years and see if if we were anywhere close to correct.
Let us know who owes who the In-N-Out burger.
That's right.